David Vizard here, and you, my friends, are watching PowerTec 10. Before we get going here, one of the things I'd like to say is thank you for all the subscribers. At 8:25 this morning, we surpassed the 40,000 number. Great. That's in 10.5 months. That is almost an average of 4,000 a month. Anyway, on with the plot. In this edition, which will be 103, I'm going to bring you up to speed on the wheel and tire situation on our test Project Mustang. Now, I did say that the next one would probably be the 427 Ford, but I need to get this done quick because I've got an appointment with the drag strip very shortly. This hullabaloo with Apex led me to work on an alternative route for my wheels. And I'm just going to briefly touch on the wheel situation here. But the main deal is going to be tires. Now, I got these wheels, and I'll run the name across the bottom here, and they rivaled the weight of the Apex wheels I was going to get, but at 1/3 of the price. And bottom line is I think I've got a better looking wheel for my money. Now, I want to stress that it's important that you check the weight of the wheels that you like the style of. I've been through a lot of wheels now, checking this, that and the other, and I am amazed at some cast. I found a cast wheel that would fit my Mustang that was over 40 pounds. In fact, I think I found one that was 46 pounds, but I didn't like it, but somebody might. So if you see a wheel that doesn't have the weight on, check it before you buy it. It is possible for you to buy wheels for your Mustang 2 inches wider than stock, and they can be as much as 5 pounds lighter. Now, there was one company which I only discovered the other day, and it's out of Japan. They used to do much of the forging for Formula One wheels, so I think we know that they can make wheels. Now, they were showing off an 18-inch by 9.5-inch wheel. I'm pretty sure it's a 9.5-inch wheel. 16 pounds. Made of a special alloy specifically designed by them, developed for wheels on Formula One cars. Now you may well ask what I'm doing here. Simple. I'm measuring the distance, clearance between the caliper and the wheel. Now, why am I doing this? I need to check to see what's the biggest brake I can put in here. Let me qualify that. The biggest lightweight brake I can put in 18-inch wheels. Now, I suspect that my new wheels will give me more clearance. I've got a caliper measurement here. I'm just going to measure it now with a dial caliper. Here we are. This, for all practical purposes, measures out at 9/10 of an inch. Let's see what our new wheels do. Now, it's not much, but I'm sure you can just see the height difference here. Also, you can see the wheel that I selected. Now, I've got to be sure I pronounce this right. It's an Odom 18-inch by 9.5-inch wheel. Although it's 1.5 inches wider, and it's mounting a tire which is 1.5 inches wider than the original one, the set, this one here, is 5.5 pounds lighter than this one here. Now, earlier on you saw me measuring the clearance the brake caliper has. Well, we'll check it in a moment when we put this wheel on. For now, let's look at the width difference. Because of the different construction, the Continental tire is not quite an 1.5 inches wider tread width than the Firestone that it's replacing. Now, the real difference in tread width is about 1.1 inches. The rest of the width of the tire is the difference in sidewall. So you'll see that the sidewall is steeper on the Firestone that's to the left than it is on the Continental. Anyway, we've got 1.25 inches more tread and the rubber is softer. Now, if you'll remember earlier on, I was checking the clearance between the inside of the wheel, this wheel, and the caliper. Well, unfortunately, due to a step in this wheel here where the spokes join, I can't access the back of the wheel from the front. So what I did was I used a suitably sized rule and measured. Here's the good news. This wheel has over 1/2 inch more clearance on the caliper than this wheel. What this means is we may be able to fit the GT brakes on the front of this. Now, they are a 6-pot caliper brake, and because there's a whole load of them displaced by being used by their parent vehicle being used with aftermarket brakes, they're cheap. American Muscle has them for $1,400. Discs, the whole kit to do the front. That's the discs, the brake calipers, and the fittings. Now, unfortunately, I will be exchanging one heavy brake setup for another. So here's what I'm going to do to start with. Until I can afford some lightweight 6-pot calipers, I'm going to get that kit, dispense with the rotors, and buy some lightweight ones from Bear or Willwood. Any of those reputable companies out there, there's more than those two. So, what have we achieved so far? Let's just analyze that. So what have we achieved so far with our cautious and diligent research on what wheels we can use, we can afford, we will like? A lot. First off, our combined wheel tire weight has dropped by 5.5 pounds. That means overall we've saved 22 pounds weight on the car, and as a quick guesstimation, somewhere in the region of 4 to 5% on the moment of inertia of the wheel and tire. Now that's all good. It doesn't sound very much, but the fact that we've got 1.5 inches more rubber on the road and less moment of inertia and improved gearing means that we've potentially improved the road holding and the acceleration, all in one fell swoop. Now, the other thing is, because the inside of our rolled rim is bigger than the original Ford wheel, which I'm looking at over there, by 1/2 inch, what that means is we should be able to get the Mustang GT brakes in there, and the big, not only the bigger 6-pot caliper, but also the bigger rotor. Now, we don't want to be adding weight just ad lib. So my plan here was to get the GT brakes, because they're cheap. They're like an off-the-shelf deal, because they're leftover. They're displaced from companies like Shelby and Roush when they install bigger brakes for their upmarket cars. What we'll now be able to do is put on a lighter rotor, that is one with a aluminum hat, and that will save us quite a bit of weight. Now, down the road, we can now fit the brakes that would have been used had we been upgrading a GT. So we will end up with a much lighter tire wheel brake combination. We'll have greater stopping power, less unsprung weight, and the car will be more appropriately geared. Later on down the road, we are going to put that 3.7 final drive in. So now we're starting to get the gearing really near where it's needed. Anyway, let's install one of these wheels and see what it looks like. Anyway, enough on wheels. Let's go and look at our tire selection for the wheels we've selected. 18-inch by 9.5 wide. How do we know what size wheel and tire to fit? Okay, let's move on to the rubber. At the end of the day, the amount of cornering we can get, the amount of traction and the amount of braking is, at the last resort, dependent on the grip of the tire. So, how do we find out what tire to use? Well, this is my advice. In simple terms, it's called TireRack.com. Now, there's a lot of other companies out there that will sell you the tires just the same price they do. But the reason I recommend TireRack is that they have all these tests that they do on them, and they're pretty good about getting these right. You can go through all the tires and see which one is likely to work. Now, I'm not going to be driving this car in the winter. Why? Because I don't want any salt on it or anything like that. I even try and avoid driving it in the wet. Why? Because when I come to sell it, I want the guy that buys it to be looking at a car which he cannot distinguish from brand new. Just goes a lot better. Now, here we go. I'm only going to use summer tires. Now, I don't want to use all-out race tires for the simple reason that they don't have the mileage for road use, even if I'm only using it in dry and in the warmer months of the year. Now, most of you will be looking for tires which are all-season tires, and there's some good ones out there. And some of you will be looking for tires which can manage snow because you live in one of the northern states. The list goes on. Your tire will need to be different to what I may select. Now, what I did here was I got onto TireRack's test comparisons, right? Green columns. I'll show you some of those in a moment. And I looked at the scores of tires in the same category. Now, a very popular tire, as I was told by, let me see, it was Todd at TireRack, very helpful guy, right? The most popular tire, due to the fact that it is a very functional tire, is the Michelin, I've forgotten the full name of it. It's on their list in their dry summer tire or race tire. But everybody goes with those tires, so I wouldn't be testing much if I followed suit. So what I did was I looked through all the other stuff they had and I could make comparisons. And a comparison I came up with went like this. The Continental tire that was on their list was about $40 cheaper for the same size. It scored 1 point better in the dry, but 7 points worse in the wet. Now, a point is percentage-wise, right? It was 9.6 for the dry as opposed to the Michelin's 9.5, and the Michelin score in the wet was 9.2 as opposed to the Continental's 8.5. Now, these are all graded against the best tire. So since I needed to be able to get this into the 13s, I went for the grippiest road tire. Now, the other thing with the Continental was it was rated slightly better on tread wear. So I could abuse these tires on the track and not expect them to wear out as quick. And I've checked various sources that have posted into TireRack and their guy, And the Continentals seem to take abuse pretty damn good on a road course. They don't show the wear that you would expect for the traction they hold. So, although it may not be the best all-round tire, it looks like it will be the best for my application. And I wouldn't have got there if I hadn't gone and really made a point of studying the tire rack tire testing. So that's a very good place to start your investigation. Now, the next thing is what size do you pick? That's what most people are most concerned with. Most people dive into this and they want the biggest brutish tire they can get. Well, that might be good for looks, and if you want to impress the girls, should they give a damn anyway. But if they know what they're doing, like two of my girls do, they would have said, oh yeah, you obviously didn't know what you were doing when you chose your tires because they're too big, right? You can't get away with just more tire. The tire works in conjunction with the wheel. The bigger sidewall you have, the more it's going to flex. Now what we want to do is, our goal setting out was to get a tire which we could, if possible, lower the ratio, effectively lower the gear ratio by having a smaller diameter, and B, putting more rubber on the road. Well, how much width can that wheel take? A good answer for that is to take the wheel width and multiply it by 3. And that would give us something close to the metric size width of the tire. For instance, we've got 9.5. Multiply that by 3, that's 27, 28 and a half. So we could fit a tire up to 280 wheel width. However, I want this tire to be slightly smaller in diameter, and the 285 tire width was virtually the same size as the ones I was taking off. So I went with a 275, which is still big enough to fit, to make use of that wheel. Now that gave us a 6.5 to 1 reduction. It also helped us because that tire is about 2 pounds lighter. And what else does it do? Oh, it also saves us money. So that's why I put the 275 on. Now, if you've got a 9.5 inch wheel, right, and you decide that 285 is it, or you want to see it slightly bigger, it's not beyond the possibility of putting a 295 in with a lower sidewall height, like a 295 30. I've got 275 35, right? That 275 is the width in millimeters. The 35 is the aspect ratio. That is how tall the tire is compared with the width. So the 35 means it's 35% of the tire height to the width. Looks good on the car. We have achieved a bunch of things here. With the smaller diameter, we are going to be able to improve the braking. For any given brake pedal pressure, the car will stop quicker because the center of the wheel is nearer where the force is being applied by the ground to the tire, right? So we have increased the capability of the disc brake to transmit its torque reduction to the rim of the surface of the tire. So all in all, we've achieved quite a lot. Now let's put these on and see what they look like. here's something else I found. This wheel nut for the new wheels is much lighter than the factory original. The difference in the weight of 6 of these compared with 6 of these is almost 6 ounces. That's 3/4 of the way to being half a pound. So our total wheel weight reduction is nearer 6 pounds than 5.5. Okay, that's enough for this edition of PowerTec 10. But let me sum up what we've achieved here. First, we've got wider wheels. Second, we've got wider tires with more grip. Third, we've effectively lowered the car 3/4 of an inch. 4, we've lowered the effective gearing from 3.15 to what would be, had we done it via gears instead of tires, a 3.31. So we've gone from 3.15 to 3.31. That is definitely going to help us on the drag strip. We've reduced the unsprung weight virtually 6 pounds per corner. 24 pounds lighter car. Not much, but the right direction. We've made room for bigger brakes. Now this was, how shall I say, a little bit of luck here. Without knowing it, I picked a wheel which had much better internal clearance. We gained something like a 1/2 inch extra clearance. So these wheels on internal diameter look to be about the same as the 19-inch Ford factory wheels, which will accommodate the 14-inch discs of the GT and the caliper, the 6-pot caliper. So that's opened up a whole new avenue there for us. Now, what I've decided to do here, since I'm on a run, I'm going to find out whether the brake fits or not, so that you can fit it. But I'm going to jump a step here and go straight to an aftermarket brake with much lighter rotors and a much lighter caliber. Last thing on the list we've achieved is I like these wheels a lot better than the stock factory ones. And with that, I'm wrapping up this session of PowerTec 10. The next session, I hope, will be the 427 build. And meanwhile, I will be working on the other areas of the car. Brakes. I think the next big thing I'm going to buy, though, is going to be a much more aerodynamic hood than is the one currently on the car. I'm looking over there, that's where it's parked. So with that, let me say thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to have us notify you whenever there's a new edition on. Tell all your Mustang friends about this, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you.